Hello, we've been asked to assess and tune pianos in an Oxford college, so just looking at them all to see what sort of work needs doing on them. This is in a chapel, and it's a Bluthner Grand 1907, so and it's also patent action, so it's not what you normally find in a concert venue, but they're particularly fond of this piano, and it was donated to the college, so obviously that's another reason for trying to keep it and maintain it, and it has been well restored by somebody as well. And looking at the keys here, they're very yellow, and they need buffing really, because they're attracting the dirt. They're not shiny. If keys are not shiny, they do attract the dirt. Something else I wanted to point out is that there were two pencils inside the piano. It's quite common this, and colleges often suffer from this. The pencils fall down there and they end up inside the piano, and then they wonder why the piano is rattling. Well, got the two pencils out there, so if you do have a rattly piano, first of all you can take this out by putting it at 45 degrees and lifting it. If it's a Steinway grand, that's more problematic. You have to take all of this out as well. But Bluthner grands, they come out very easily. So I don't think the cosmetics were an issue for the college really. That's the plaque, the donation plaque, and then if we go all the way around, you can see it's on a what we call A-frame. That's the old style A-frame. Nowadays they tend to put dollies round each of the legs, which is better in a sense. You can take them off more easily, so cosmetically is nice, so you can get rid of them for a concert. This is an A-frame. It doesn't come out. The casters are taken off. There's also an easy fit frame, which is similar to an A-frame, but you leave the casters on. But that's the old style frame, which was usually used when you wanted to move a piano around, just to strengthen the legs, which is quite important really if you're moving a piano around a lot. Sorry, I stepped down a step there. So looking at the top of the piano, it's quite scratched. So obviously we can get that to make it good, but have to repolish the whole piano, I think, in order to match it in, because if you just rub this down, it ends up quite dark. Rosewood's like that. Well, this is dark anyway, so it's varied, but I don't think it's an issue for the college really. I noticed the music stand has got this breakage here, so that's something we could repair. We'd have to probably repair all of that part of the rail there, and so it does slot in there, but it's broken, so it's something we could do. So the piano's been well restored. It hasn't had a new rest plank, so these are larger tuning pins than normal. We often, when we fully restore, replace the rest plank. But these are tight, these tuning pins, so that's not essential to do that. I remember we replaced the string here. You might be able to see a lighter coloured string, so we had to replace that. So I think the matching is good. So they're the two strings next to each other. So it's a beautiful sound. Bluthners do sound so beautiful. I noticed there's quite lots of pedal noise on both pedals, so that's something we could certainly address and try and improve. So I think that pedal noise is the main thing that would worry musicians. And also there's no stool with it. There's an extremely broken stool in the corner here, but these chairs are used instead, just ordinary chairs. So it would be useful to have an adjustable stool for musicians. There's good legroom for if you're tall. That's the easy frame, the A-frame is causing it to be lifted up slightly higher than normal. I don't think that much though, because the pedal height's only 6.5, so must have been originally quite good legroom, which is useful for tall people, as we've mentioned, not very often, because there are lots of tall people who play the piano. So if we look at the key weighting here, it's a little bit. No, I think it's almost exactly right. I beg your pardon. I think we probably did that when we did some reconditioning on this piano. We didn't do the work of full restoration, which has been done well, but we have done some reconditioning on it afterwards. So that's a Bluthner grand piano, Alicot scaling and patent action. We've talked about patent actions on other videos, so on this one we've got lots of pianos to assess, so I'll try and put a link to patent action, what it means, because it's different from the normal action on a piano. The touch is different, and if you want to do fast repetition, well, it works fine like that. We've regulated this piano, very fine regulated. So it does work with repetition, but if you want to do very fast repeated notes, you have to bring the key right up onto patent action. It's a beautiful tone. We have hired out other Bluthner patent action pianos to this venue because there was a couple of folks that like to come back every year and do piano duets on 2 similar pianos. So we've hired out patent action Bluthners to this location. So generally speaking, the piano is good, but the keys are definitely needed buffing. It's really will stop the dirt being attracted, and they're quite rough feel to them, so that's something I'd recommend. Otherwise, bits of voicing, that's always an ongoing thing when pianos are played. The hammers vary slightly from one to the other. This is a Boston 178 grand piano made in 2007, and it's in a college. We're just trying to see what sort of work might improve the piano and what needs doing. And there's a sense of stickiness on the action. We'll look into that later on. There's quite good leg room here, and the pedals slope downwards, so it's a nicely designed piano, designed by Steinway, made in, I think it's made in Japan by Kawai. I think that's probably correct. And this is finished. I think it's a worn up. I'm not quite sure, because modern finishes, they have different names sometimes to old ones, but it's a light wood, and although it's standing in the window here, you'd expect to see fading here, but probably because it's already quite a light piano, and there's not really much difference in colour there, I don't think at all. We did notice that the hinge wasn't a hinge. When we lifted the lid up, this hinge was totally disengaged, so we put that in. We nearly had an accident with it because it wasn't on at all. So that hinge, the pin was out completely, so we've rectified that. I think when folks have lifted up and down, it's pulled these screws out a bit because the other one wasn't fitting at all, so that's something that needs doing. So the sluggishness in the keys is because they need lubricating. This central rail here needs lubricating. We use talc lubricant. And if you lift the keys up, you see, they're not coming back down. They should come back down. They did when they were new. So there's usually a bit of moisture got into the piano. I'm surprised because the location doesn't seem particularly moist, but it's definitely in the hammers as well. If we pull the action out and have a look at the hammers, you'll see that they're not going, they should just all fall down nicely. If I lift them up like that, they're not falling down at all. This is a slight angle there. So let's have a look at some more so you can see what I mean. There we are. They should fall down, and the hinges are tight. We've shown this before, how that should swing at least 4 times if you take it off. Sorry, I'm not showing the swing today because I've got lots of pianos to assess, but that one you can see is very tight. So that's causing sluggishness and causing the action to feel heavy as well. Now, the Boston has a square style fall like an American Steinway. European Steinways tend to have curved falls here. There's some cosmetic damage on the inside. I don't think it's affecting the piano at all. There's obviously some spillage there, and you see a little bit on the soundboard too, a bit on the strings, but it's not really damaged the piano. And a bit more on the felt here as well. So the main work to do on this piano was done the lid hinge. That was important. It was in danger of getting damaged otherwise. Lubricating the hammers definitely, and the balance rail, and then the rollers I didn't mention we could lubricate too, and then reweigh if necessary. The weight is high. Once it's lubricated, that might bring it down anyway. That's quite low, there, 49 there, but generally it's near the 60 mark, so it should be more around the 50 there. That's work is definitely going to improve the touch on the piano. So that's the Boston 178 grand piano, part of the college assessment that we're doing, and it's a lovely piano, but there's a definite sense of sluggishness, and you feel that straight away, and it's related to needing lubrication. Once that's done, it will play a lot more fluidly. My colleague who tunes this piano regularly says it's a lovely piano. But we do notice these extra jobs need doing, and if you're a college, and I'd recommend you get an assessment, say, well, at least every 20 years. This Boston's 2007, so perhaps we should say every 10 years if you can afford to, because there's work to do as well as tuning always on pianos as they're used. Obviously, the more they're used, the more work tends to need doing. So I hope that's helpful to somebody Certainly this piano will be greatly improved once it's lubricated and the other work is done as well. This is the Yamaha U1N, made in, I think, probably about 1990, I'm not sure. And it's made in Milton Keynes, made by Kemble, and it has a Kemble number on it. The N after the number tells you it's made by Kemble, even though it's a Yamaha. And very well made. Kemble pianos are well made pianos. Has a bit more legroom than the average Yamaha. Kemble tends to give a bit more legroom, and the pedals are quite low, 6.5, so it's good for tall people. Now, cosmetically, the casework's quite faded. I don't suppose that matters for college, but it's probably the light that's behind here is quite a strong light source. Not quite sure if this was mahogany or walnut. They tend to call pianos mahogany or walnut, and the colour's quite similar, but maybe the wood's walnut. Not really sure about that. Sorry, it wouldn't be the actual wood, it's the veneer put on. This was obviously a donation to the college. The keys are in very good condition. You can see signs of it being used. There's some looseness coming in. Not desperate, but it's something that you can tell. And also the the touch is very light. It might have been light originally, but through playing it obviously gets light as well. Now, looking at the hammers, it hasn't been played hugely, actually. It hasn't been overused, so not sure why the touch is so light. It could do with being made heavier. If you're going to practice, you could do with a heavier touch. That number there is a shop that used to be called Russell Acott in Oxford. They put their numbers on like that. So this is in Oxford, and obviously supplied by them, I presume. So there's a tuner's record. It's useful to have tuner's records. It's useful to know any work that's been done on a piano. So there's not a huge amount to do on this piano, though the touch is light, so it could be reweighed. That's something we do a lot on uprights, because if you're going to practice and you want to then play on concert pianos and so on, it's not a good idea to be too light. So 3840 estimated weight there. So in voicing, it could do with voicing. It's a bit on the bright side, but Kemble Yamahas tend to be a bit bright anyway. So that's a Yamaha U1N made in the UK, and they're well made pianos. Very stable, the tuning's stable. I don't know when we last tuned this. I think we did last tune it. So there's not a lot of work to do on this piano except the touch, I would say, and a bit of voicing. Some hammers are brighter than others, and it could be voiced down a bit. It will be more pleasant to listen to, I think. But it's a pleasant piano. This is a Welmar upright piano, 120 centimetres tall. With those tall casters, it's bringing it up to about 124 or 5, I think, which gives good legroom actually, so that's useful. But the pedals end up going quite high, but because of the style of these pedals, they're kind of rounded on the end. It doesn't seem to matter quite so much, so if you're tall, it's fine to use it like that. This case, I think it's like a school finish. 1984 this was made in, right at the end of the Welmar's best period really. Then they started to diverge a little bit. Very soon they went out of business and merged with other companies in Britain. The general condition of the outside of the piano is not too bad. I don't think cosmetics are too much of a problem here. This isn't a practice room. That's obviously broken off. You've still got that one there. That's just sheared off inside. That's such a common thing to happen. You could obviously put another one on if you wanted to, but probably is fine like it is. There's a damp chaser device being fitted to the piano, but I don't think it's been working for a long time. It's inside there. I'm not really sure that it needed one down here. Perhaps it was slightly damp, so therefore damp chaser is where this bar heats up and chases the damp away. Normally they don't have all this sophisticated system, they just stay on all the time, but I'm not sure if it was necessary. Maybe it was. It's in the basement area in a college. There's no signs of damp in the action of the piano, although this could do with lubrication as usual. That's the balance rail. If we take a key out, just show you what the lubrication is, but we've got other videos showing this. This gets a bit stiff, this hole, so we put talc lubricant on, just ease the hole a little bit without opening it up. It's important not to open that hole up, and then just sometimes clean the pin off if it needs it. Looks okay under the keyboard too. You can see how the felt's worn here, so it's been used quite a lot. So I think that felt's rubbed off these back checks here. Looking at the hammers, you can see they've had reasonable amounts of wear. There's plenty of life left in it, and fortunately, as Welmar's a very well-made piano, there's no sideways movement in the hammers, though this one's moved over a bit. If you move that back over, you'll know if you're a technician, if you move it over, a different part of the hammer hits the string. So it might sound too soft, so you need to perhaps reface it before you move it over, or reface all of them ideally. The tone of them is varied, so I've marked some of them. They're slightly out of tune, as you can hear. It's not been tuned for a long time, I don't think, so it does need voicing as well. The dampers are lifting off nicely with the pedal, though they're quite late actually if you with the key, so as pressing the key down, they're quite late. They're functioning properly, but that's just something to watch. They could perhaps be slightly earlier. And this one here is loose. If you look at it, it's vibrating around because it needs gluing on. That's a small job. So this is a well-made piano, right at the end of Welmar's period. I would say if you're buying anything that's younger than 1984, you have to be a bit careful. I recommend Welmar's before that period, really. So sometimes we look at them and they're all right at that period, but generally speaking, you have to be more careful. So Welmar's in the 70s are pretty much reliable. They vary a bit. Knights is the same. So Knight and Welmar, very similar age you should look for, really. So just the gluing the damper. The touch weight is a bit varied, so that could be made better. I think mainly the voicing I've noticed here. So if we look at this octave here, for instance, apart from it being out of tune, that's very bright. So mark some of them on there, and just general voicing. On uprights it's easy to do as you go along. On grands you have to pull the action out, but uprights it's something when you're tuning a piano you can do the voicing at the same time. So that's a Welmar upright piano, 120 centimetres tall, without the caster cups on, the big caster cups here. So you could take those off, although it gives you a lot of legroom if you're a tall person. So it stood up very well. It's a high quality piano, Welmar. That's one of the ones we recommend alongside Knight as some of the best English pianos. It's a bit out of tune at the moment, so it's due for its tuning. Been asked to assess this piano and assess all the pianos, and I think this one's mainly voicing. Nothing else is really outstanding on it. A little bit of regulation too, but generally speaking you can do voicing when you're tuning. You can do it as you go along. This is a Yamaha U3 upright piano, 131 centimetres tall, made in 1974, and it's one of the parts of the assessment for pianos in the college, just to see what other work needs doing apart from tuning. Looking at the piano, we did actually sell this to the college in 2017. You can see actually a sticker there gives it away. We had a branch in Sevenoaks in those days when the Renner agent was operating there, but he's not there anymore, unfortunately. I have opened up the piano to look inside, see if anything needs doing, but there was nothing. Everything's regulated well, so that's encouraging. Key weighting a little bit heavier than in places, so there's 60 here on this this F sharp and 61. The sharps are a bit heavier than they should be, and there's the odd one here. So it's a service we offer nowadays, didn't offer in 2017, to just even out the weight so that it's like a new piano. There's a few bright ones here that's I'd mark, so with playing the notes become brighter. Let's have a so that one there, and the B flat too, so several of them that as you're tuning, you're going along. On upright pianos it's easy to voice as you're going along. The main work on this piano is tuning. It's apart from key weighting, if you want that done as well. It's useful to have very even key weighting. It's better when you're practicing, so we do that standard for all our uprights now. And supplying a stool, there don't seem to be any piano stools in this room at all, so we can certainly supply that. So that's the Yamaha U3 made in 1974, one of our preferred ages of piano for Yamahas, and for many pianos. Knight's, Welmar's the other two makes we sell most of. It's pretty out of tune at the moment, so the main work is tuning this needs. It's not been tuned for a long time, so the college has asked us to tune it, and at the same time we said, why don't we assess the pianos, and certain of the pianos definitely need improving, I believe. So I hope this has been helpful. If you've got pianos in a college that you'd like assessed, then please let us know. This is an Elysian upright piano, 131 centimetres tall, I think made in about 1970 or so. I'm not sure about that. Try and find out. Got the Morley numbers written down, but no serial number on it. Elysian's a Morley name. It's a name that they put on their pianos. So try to find out a bit more about that. If you're in the trade and watching this, please do comment if you know. That would be really useful. The case is very dirty, but in terms of musical instrument, obviously that's not relevant. It came from the music faculty. There's a sticker inside that says there's the Morley numbers, and underneath it says from the music faculty. So that's I think they changed their pianos, and presumably they offer them to colleges. The music desk is flimsy and cracked here, as you can see, and this hinge is flimsy, so we could try and improve that. There's the piano model U131. I've got a feeling that's Korea, if you can, made in Korea, if you can back that up, or let me know otherwise. That would be very useful. It's had a reasonable amount of wear in the music faculty, and I think it's been refaced as well. So the hammers are quite worn and they're quite varied. There's one, and that's where the dampers run out, and they're not really very full in their tone compared to the Yamaha I've just assessed next to it. Now, the other strange thing about this is that, Celeste is missing, by the way. As you can see, that used to be on there, but obviously for general playing that's not important. But you can see there that the half blow pedal is up for some reason, but it's been regulated like that. So the capstans aren't, well, there's one loose one there, but most of the capstans aren't loose. So I don't know what's happened there, why they've done that. And the hammer blows consequently about, I think it's about 30 something rather than 47, so the hammer blow is not very great. So you can see the dampers are therefore lifting off very early, so not quite sure what to do there to improve the piano, whether we want to work. It could be quite a lot of work really. The dampers are lifting off a bit later there, but here you can see they're earlier, that one there, so it's lifting off quite early. That's because the hammers are starting much later than they should be. See, there's a gap there shouldn't be a gap there, so not quite sure why that's happened. And there's some tapes that have been taken off, presumably broken, and maybe some work being done on there, and then the tape breaks and you have to replace the end of it. Some strange regulation having gone on here with the half blow. I'm not sure what to do. I put a question mark there. It's difficult to know what to advise here. The weights of the keys vary a bit, so really not sure. I have to really think about the piano. It's obviously got lots of wear in the music faculty, and maybe you could say it'll soldier on for a long time, but won't sort of play with the kind of finesse that you really want it to play with. There's some new strings I forgot to mention. So some strings are broken reasonably recently. I think one of them was quite out of tune. You can see that one's been placed a bit further in than perhaps you'd want it to be, and that one's got lots of coils on it. So obviously the pianos have problems with strings. That doesn't happen normally on high quality modern pianos, so not sure what's happened there. So that's Elysian Morley piano. Not quite sure where it comes from. If you can help with that, that'd be very useful. And it feels very strange at the moment because of the way the action is out of regulation. So it's quite a tall piano, so it has some positive features. It's hard to get a good tone out of the hammers here. You hear the variety of tone there. So a bit of a question mark as to what to do to advise on this one. So I've come to the end of the assessment of pianos in this college, and certainly do recommend, if you've got pianos in your college that have just been tuned and not assessed, then it's worth just getting them assessed. We obviously have to charge to assess the pianos because of the time involved, but certainly one piano, the Boston Grand, has very obvious work that would improve the piano. Thank you very much for listening.